Hey, welcome back. I'm Ferrikster, here to bring you some more Pokemon Go GBL battles. These battles are practice battles for the upcoming Sinnoh Cup. Before I hop into that, and there is a timestamp in the description, assuming I remembered to put it there, to skip ahead my talking and overview and skip straight to the practice battle, so if you're only here for that, you can hop into that. Really quickly, I am going to go over the PvPoke rankings. This is as good a place as any to start with. PvPoke, as I'm sure every other content creator has pointed out ad nauseum, is a really fantastic resource. So a little bit about their overall rankings, though. Because as much as PvPoke is an amazing resource, it's not without its own biases and shortcomings. So the way that they like the score that they have there on the side is their overall ranking, and they calculate that by running a bunch of different shield scenarios with all of the Pokemon in the cup up against each other. And that's as good a method as any for determining which Pokemon is best. But when they do calculate in the shield scenarios, anytime you have any shielding scenario on PvPoke, the default assumption is that if you build up to enough energy for the nuke and bait, your bait will be successful and will get the shield. And that kind of methodology intrinsically favors Pokemon that have a large difference between the cost of their bait move and the cost of their nuke. So if you remember a few cups ago, Diggersby was the #1 ranked Pokemon for, I think it was one of the Remix Cups, actually, one of the Great League Remix Cups. And yeah, in practice, as the cup wore on, it turned out that Diggersby was actually really not performing that well. It was very inconsistent, and it wasn't doing a lot of what it was supposed to be able to do. And a lot of that just came from, in all of the rankings calculations, when they ran that, you run it with Fire Punch and Earthquake, Diggersby will always bait Fire Punch, that bait will always be successful, and it will always then land the Earthquake. And in practice, that's not really, the way it happens. So just something to keep in mind when you're going over the rankings. I'm not saying to, discount or ignore it, just that, there are going to be some Pokemon like here, Lucario and Gastrodon, which you can see that, running Power Up Punch and Shadow Ball or Body Slam Earthquake, both of those have a large difference between the cost of their cheaper bait move and the cost of their heavier move. So, because they are bait dependent, they are slightly more favored in the rankings than they normally would be. So, not saying Lucario won't be good for this cup. It definitely will be, but will it be, as strong as this score of 94.5 implies? Maybe not quite that strong. So, really quickly, the rest of the things here and my expectations for what we're going to see in this meta. I am definitely expecting to see a lot of Lucario and Bastiodon in the initial matchups. I don't know that Lucario and Bastiodon will hold up so well as we go along, because specifically, I think Toxicroak and Froslass will probably be a lot more common. Toxicroak obviously shuts down Lucario, shuts down Bastiodon, has a pretty decent matchup against Pachirisu just because of the Mud Bomb. Like, the top 3 Pokemon here, as you can see, are weak against ground, and Gastrodon obviously could take advantage of that. But so can Toxicroak, while still having a pretty good matchup against a lot of other things. Of course, Toxicroak also weak against ground, so, leaves a lot of room for Gastrodon to be very strong. Gastrodon is a Pokemon that not a lot of people have built. I made one for this video, and it was okay. And a few of my opponents ran it also, and it ranged from being okay to being... I guess there were times where it was actually very strong against the Steel types. Abomasnow, I expect to actually see a decent amount of. I don't think I encountered it that much in the practice battles, but as we all know, everyone has an Abomasnow built, and it was very common in the wild fairly recently, at least in the Northern Hemisphere. So, yeah, expect to see a decent amount of that. Froslass, I would say, is actually probably going to be like one of the most meta Pokemon. Froslass has always been very strong in all of the cups that she's been allowed to be in, and I have run her a lot of the times, and a lot of people have. So a lot of people have a Froslass. A lot of people are very comfortable running Froslass. They're familiar with her matchups. And she performs very well against most of the things here. Does pretty, at least has a neutral matchup against everything. Bastiodon is obviously a problem, completely shuts down Froslass, but, every Pokemon has their weakness. Drapion, I think, will also be pretty common. I like Froslass and Drapion together. They function pretty well. You would have to run Drapion with Aqua Tail to give yourself more coverage against the Steel types, Lucario, Bastiodon. But yeah, I think Drapion with Aqua Tail is probably the way to play that, and I think it'll be a very strong Pokemon. Also, Toxicroak I already covered is going to be incredibly strong and very, very common because everyone's got one. Munchlax is pretty good, although I tried to switch a Munchlax into a Froslass, and it turns out that Froslass actually wins the zeros against Munchlax because even though Munchlax's licks are super effective and the Bulldoze hits for neutral, it still can't win the zeros against Froslass. Just Powder Snow makes things so spammy, and Avalanche is such an energy efficient and heavy hitting move. Cresselia with Psycho Cut, Grass Knot, and Moonblast. Drifblim with Hex, Icy Wind, Shadow Ball. Drifblim, I think, will probably be less common than being here at number 12 suggests, just because it doesn't really have the best matchup against a lot of the other things here. Everything here, aside from like Gastrodon, does a pretty good job of shutting down Drifblim. Just Basti, Pachirisu, which is incredibly expensive and very inaccessible, but if you live in that region, yeah, it's going to be a pretty good choice. And Abomasnow, Froslass, Drapion. Like, Drifblim has good matchups against, the fighters, although if Lucario lands the Shadow Ball, obviously that KOs. But Drifblim doesn't have a lot of, neutral matchups, so it's going to feel kind of hit or miss, and I don't know if it's going to be the most consistent Pokemon to use. Empoleon, Licky Licky. Licky Licky kind of does need Body Slam to be good. I ran it with Lick, Earthquake, and Shadow Ball because my Licky Licky is ranked 103. And I feel like since I'm probably going to still end up trading Lickitung at every opportunity, I'll eventually end up with a better one. So I just didn't want to spend the Elite TM yet, even though they're starting to kind of, build up. I actually do need to start spending those on something. Magnezone, both Shadow and Knot. Drapion, Gallade, Gliscor. Wormadam Trash, which is, pretty thick when it's XL. And XL Wormadam Trash actually isn't that hard to build. Wormadam, or Burmy, I guess, is actually a 1 kilometer walk. So if you wanted to build an XL Wormadam, it only takes about 80 or 90 XL candy. Sometimes less, depends on the IV spread that you have. But, 0, 15, 15-ish is what you're going for. And it takes like 80-ish candy, depending on exactly how much, stat you have. So, it's something you could walk in a week, especially if you, run marathons at night or something. Electivire is very squishy, so if you're going to use it, you got to use shields. Hippowdon with Fire Fang, Weather Ball, Rock, and Earth Power. It's going to do a pretty okay job of taking care of Lucario and Bastiodon. I don't expect to see those as often, but Hippowdon, takes super effective damage from Ice, so Froslass, even though you're hitting it with super effective damage with Fire Fang, you're not going to be able to survive a Avalanche. Hippowdon, despite looking thick, isn't actually thick. Yeah. It gets hit pretty hard by stuff. Togekiss, Luxray, Bronzong, Gallade, Skuntank, and everything, I guess, below Infernape, I would say, I did not really see in my practice battles, and I don't think you will. Things down here are, generally speaking, probably not the best. XL Bonsly, if you wanted to bring a Hundo Bonsly up to level 51, I think it tops out at like 1470 or something. So, that's something that you could do if you really wanted to, but I don't know that you should. Probopass would have been fine, except that we already have Bastiodon, and Bastiodon really kind of is just a better Probopass in this meta. Skuntank, and there's a bunch of grass types down here. Like, you could, obviously, try to run Bastiodon with Razor Leafers. You could run traditional Grass Hole here. Cherim, Roserade, and Torterra all learn Razor Leaf, even though Cherim and Roserade are shown with Bullet Seed here. I don't know if that's the best choice, though, just because both Lucario and Toxicroak, if they're anywhere on the opposing team, they'll be able to kind of shut that down, especially because only Roserade of these selected here actually resists counter. But like Toxicroak and Lucario both resist grass and resist rock. So, traditional Grass Hole while we certainly have Bastion and it's well rated, and there are certainly ample Razor Levers to choose from, I don't know that it's the most advisable strategy. Yeah, and everything down here is even worse than the things that were not good. So, yeah, don't expect to see too many of those. So, let's hop into these battles. All right, my first matchup is up against Elmo is Innocent. Toxicroak into Froslass. Froslass, kind of expecting it to be a very common lead. I did not put adequate thought into preparing for that, I guess, because the team that I built here in the lead is actually kind of ABA weak to that. Bronzong does not have a great matchup against Froslass. Froslass just, you know, outpaces Bronzong quite heavily, even if they go straight Shadow Ball. So I'm just going to throw this Mud Bomb, stay in with Toxicroak. I would actually be able to get a second Mud Bomb out when Froslass reaches their second Avalanche, but actually switched out to Luxray to try to get an energy lead, and I only saw one Snarl when they came in, so I was going to switch out on 3 to try to catch the Psychic Fang, and ended up coming out on 2 because there was an invisible Snarl. You know, yeah. If the game's not going to show me the moves, it's it makes counting kind of hard. Counting is already hard. Invisible fast moves doesn't make it easier, that's for sure. So I assumed that this Luxray couldn't have been in a Wild Charge, and that was just another Psychic Fang, and it was a Wild Charge anyway, and Bronzong went down with, like, you know, all of that energy. So now I'm in a pretty, you know, suboptimal position here, to put it very mildly. This Froslass was very close to its Avalanche, so I actually have to throw that Crunch as soon as I can, and they no-shield, which is, you know, obviously going to be kind of a problem for me. I am going to shield this Wild Charge from this Magnezone, throw my Crunch, which now that they're debuffed will definitely KO, and if they're not quite at the next Wild Charge, then I'll be able to take this game, but they are, and yeah, so... Gonna land that Wild Charge, and they're gonna take out my Drapion, and that is a GG. Close game, though. If I had seen the Luxray's Snarl, obviously I could have played that, you know, correctly. It's 3 Snarls to the Psychic Fang. Psychic Fang, by the way, is a clone of Poison Fang. Just does pretty reasonable damage and single debuffs, so it's actually a very good move. There's just nothing that learns it other than Luxray, which is a pretty squishy Pokemon. If there was ever a time to use it, it would be in this cup, though, which is a very limited meta. So, you know, if you have one that you want to use, you're a fan of Luxray, you know, feel free to try it out. Worked out pretty well for Elmo in game 1. So in the second matchup, I was able to get my Lucario out into this Munchlax and able to take it down. I did end up having to shield because they reached the Bulldoze. I think the way to play Lucario switching it into a Munchlax safe swap is probably just a straight counter down so you end with energy, since you're going to have to shield one move anyway, and their Munchlax isn't going to be able to reach 2. Abomasnow came out, and I thought that Hippowdon would be able to just Fire Fang down in no time because, you know, Fire Fang is kind of a DPS-oriented move. But without stab and taking super effective damage from ice, Hippowdon can't even safely just Fire Fang Abomasnow down. If I take an Energy Ball, it will actually be enough to take out Hippowdon. From there, like, I'm going to no-shield this Energy Ball. It's going to take out Froslass. I'm going to come out, sneak in my Fire Fang, and I'm going to let this go just so that we can see how much the Weather Ball does, and it's that much. It's a lot. Hippowdon... even though Fire Fang is double super effective against Abomasnow, since you're taking single super effective damage, single super effective with stab, the matchup is actually surprisingly even, which really doesn't give me the most faith in Hippowdon, but I am going to continue trying to use it, at least in these practice battles, because I built it, so I spent the dust and stuff on it, so I'm going to use it. I'm so broke after making this video, by the way. I was down to 70k dust. From like $1.5 million, or I way overspent. I should have just thought more about what I was doing and built teams beforehand. I just built everything that could have been useful and was like, well, I'll just make teams later. It'll be fine. It was costly. So there was a Drifblim in the lead. They switched out into Munchlax, and everything on my team does fine against Drifblim. So I just ended up just waiting a little bit, building up some energy on Drapion, and then switching out to my own Munchlax. Like, switch advantage specifically won't really matter much here because both of my Pokemon shut Drifblim down. But for whatever reason, when I built this team, I seem to have overlooked the commonality of fighters. So Lucario comes in, takes that much damage from the licks, by the way, which is so much damage from the licks. I'm gonna no shield the power up punches here. I don't want my opponent to realize that I have no answer to Lucario. So yeah, just gonna throw that crunch. I'm hoping that they no shield, because even though this crunch is single resisted, Lucario is so squishy, it's gonna do enough to put them into safe lick down range. I switch out into Licky Licky, and they switch out into Drifloon, which is actually fantastic for me. Like, they are going to debuff me with these icy winds. I'm gonna let the first one go just to see how much it does, and it's that much. The hexes are doing nothing though, so Drifloon really can't kill me. And again, since I built my Licky Licky without spending an Elite TM, I am just going to running double nukes, so I'm just going to throw a Shadow Ball. Undercharge it, even though I'm double debuffed, I undercharge by that much, so I can get a little bit more farm in. My licks are doing nothing now because I'm double debuffed, but I mean, if you go back and look at how much the licks from Munchlax were doing, it's so much to Lucario. Lucario just isn't that good of an answer, even to Munchlax. So even though I ran Drapion double normal, which should really struggle against Lucario, or Toxicroak was able to manage to take that game. That's a GG. All right, next up against Hot Pocket was a prominent leaderboarder. Froslass into Lucario. I don't know why I built this team that I'm using the way that I built it. I guess I just wasn't expecting Froslass to be as common as it turned out to be. So I throw the first power-up punch bait before I even reached the Shadow Ball, which is just dumb. I don't know what I think I was just trying to plan what to do. It just didn't end up playing this matchup that well. But I am at this point kind of committed, so I am just going to shield the second Avalanche bait, which is enough to KO Lucario anyway. They sneak in a Powder Snow, which is unfortunate for me. I am going to throw this power punch. If they shield, I'll just spam out another power punch, so I am going to be able to take this. By going down 2 shields, I do at least have some energy. Cresselia comes out. It is a Psycho Cut Cresselia. I could maybe have safely baited here, but just wanted to make sure I at least get the shield if that's going to happen. And if I got close to the Shadow Ball, I was going to switch out, assuming that they would, that Pocket was catching. But he threw here. The Grass Knot is able to take me down. I should probably have sent out Cresselia here to soak up some of this damage from the opposing Cresselia. But I sent out my Gliscor. My Gliscor, by the way, I am running it with Fury Cutter, Night Slash, and Earthquake. PvPoke recommends Wing Attack, so could that be the choice? Maybe. Probably makes it a lot harder to wall Gliscor with the likes of Lucario, but for whatever reason, I had this with Fury Cutter, so I decided to just run it with that. It does charge your charge moves a lot faster, so there is that. And now there is a Lucario left over in the back for my Cresselia. My Cresselia is still running Confusion, even though that's not the recommended set. It's the one that I'm familiar with, and I just wanted to get a feel for how that would go. Looks like if in this matchup, if you're able to shield the Shadow Ball, it is a pretty easy farm down for Cresselia, which is interesting to know. But I have no shield, so I wasn't able to shield there nor get baited. And yeah, they were able to just land that power punch at the end and take me out. But yeah, definitely didn't play that lead matchup very well, so that is 100% on me. All right. So Gastrodon into Gliscor. This is obviously a pretty bad matchup for Gastrodon, being that Gliscor is double resisting the Mud Bomb or the Mud Slaps, and Mud Slaps are really what Gastrodon does a lot of its damage with. I'm going to land that Body Slam, and I'm actually going to switch out into Munchlax to catch this Earthquake. Turned out not to be a bait. It was, in fact, the Earthquake, so that did a lot of damage. And yeah, Pocket's going to bring out a Toxicroak. That is unfortunate for me. I'm going to wait till the last second to throw my Body Slam, hoping that maybe he would think that I had reached the Bulldoze, but I just barely did not make it there. So very good counting on Pocket's part. Exactly what I expect from such a quality opponent. They are going to throw the Sludge Bomb because they're only going to be able to reach one move, but actually I think they might have been able to reach double Mud Bomb. I think he didn't expect to survive that last Mud Slap, but did. So I'm going to throw the Body Slam and then switch out into Cresselia to farm the rest of the way down. I am going to no-shield this. I was really thinking about it because I know it's going to be the Night Slash, and they let themselves go down after that, not transferring the Confusion. So yeah, definitely good that I saved my shields, because this Hydro Cannon hurts a lot more than the super effective, what's it called, than the super effective Night Slash from Gliscor. I'm just going to throw this Night Slash and throw this Grass Knot, sorry, and then try to spam out my next one, which may be a mistake because he's able to sneak in a Waterfall. I really am just barely not going to be able to reach my next Grass Knot. Actually, I wasn't really that close. Never mind. But that's all right. Gastrodon's going to come out and Mud Slap down, and yeah, that's GG. Managed to take that game. So rough team comps, but yeah, was able to make that work. All right. So Froslass into Froslass. Generally speaking, my Froslass will win most CMPs against opposing Froslass, so I usually do have that going for me. Fast move denies, so I don't get to sneak in an extra Powder Snow, so I'm going to have to be careful about trying to sneak in my own. Or at least, you know, careful about trying to deny. I throw the Shadow Ball, do manage to deny. I think Pocket maybe is used to the idea of me baiting, because I guess I do that kind of a lot, but I know he knows that, so I go straight Shadow Ball. Manage to take out his Froslass with all of that energy, so that helps, puts me in a good position. I try to fast move deny here, and Gallade sneaks in a Confusion, so I'm going to switch out and try to transfer this. And look at my Froslass's health, by the way. Like, the Confusion did transfer onto Hippowdon, but it also landed on Froslass. Seriously, go back and look at it. Like, it's... I don't understand. It's not supposed to be possible for the Confusion damage to register on Froslass and on Hippowdon. But that's exactly what it did. So, you know, quality game. I think I said in my previous video, a stable game is the meta. And, you know, I don't know why I'm playing the game in an unstable way, you know? I should just play the game in a stable way, where everything works exactly the way you'd expect it to. Clearly, that's the play. It's definitely my fault that I'm playing my game in an unstable fashion, and that things are doing whatever they want instead of doing what they're supposed to do. But, yeah. So, yeah. So I'm going to throw this Power Up Punch against this Bastidon, because I don't need them to be able to reach a charge move. If they do, I'll die. Lucario, again, pretty squishy. I'm able to end with this Shadow Ball. Yeah, and I'm gonna win CMP and manage to take out the Gallade. So yeah, that's GG. What was I saying? Quality game or something? Yeah. Yeah, stable game, pretty important. All right, next up against Hollow Purple, who always uses Pachirisu somewhere, so like I already know it's coming, but I built this team and I actually had no answer to Gastrodon, so I had to switch out into my own Gastrodon, which I was really hoping to save for the Pachirisu that I know is going to be here somewhere. I know it's coming. I just don't know where it will be. But yeah, so I get a shield from this Ferrum, and I'm going to no shield here. If they want to Solar Beam me, that's fine. Otherwise, it'll be a Weather Ball, and that just does not that much. Only about as much as 2 of the Bullet Seeds do, which is because the Bullet Seeds double super effective. So I land that Body Slam, and yeah, able to actually, like, those Mud Slaps were like resisted, by the way, and they still just do so much damage. I no shielded because, you know, it would either be a Weather Ball or a Solar Beam, and Hollow freaking Hyper Beams me. Who does that? Who runs Hyper Beam on a Cherum? But yeah, so that does a lot of damage. Gastrodon is going to come back out, and I have no answer, so yeah, I'm just going to throw this Crunch. I get the defense drop. I get in 1 counter, but I would have needed a 2nd counter, actually. And there's the Pachirisu that I knew was going to be there. I actually misplay this Pachirisu matchup slightly. Not that I think it would have been enough to matter. I'm going to shield the Thunderbolt. I throw 1 counter and then throw this Mud Bomb. And I actually needed to throw a 2nd counter and Fast Move Deny. It would have made a world of difference. Gonna throw 1 again and then throw Toxicroak. I'm pretty sure would win CMP against Pachirisu, which is only at 1364 CP. So you know, if I had gotten in 2 extra counters, I think maybe I could have just safely Poison Stinged the rest of the way down. But to be perfectly honest, it wouldn't have helped me in this situation because, you know, even if I threw 1 Crunch against that Gastrodon is bulky enough that it would have survived. So, yeah. Yeah, he got me, and that's fine. It's Pachirisu, Hyper Beam Cherum, my gosh. But, you know, it's a new meta, so could you expect to see that? Maybe. So, gonna switch out into Bronzong. I could have stayed in, I guess, with Froslass. Froslass has, outpaces Bronzong pretty substantially, but I want to showcase the rest of my Pokemon, so I am going to switch out into my Hippowdon. I'm going to shield the first move and correctly fast move deny, and I am going to bait Body Slam. Again, I'm running Body Slam and Weather Ball Rock instead of running Earth Power, which is the recommended set. I'm just trying this out in this way first. Gonna double shield, shielding that Psyshock. Psyshock, by the way, does about as much as 4 of the Confusions do, so however much damage you've taken from the 4 Confusions, the Psyshock will do about that much. So, Gliscor is going to come out. No shield the first Body Slam. I'm going to be able to get to a second Body Slam. They are going to have to shield this. They are building up a lot of energy, but Shadow Gliscor is pretty squishy, and I mean, the Fury Cutter isn't doing that much, and they are just barely able to take me out there. I'm going to bring in Lucario because I'm assuming that because Gliscor is low, they're going to have to be spamming out a Night Slash right away to deal with Froslass. And yeah, then I'm going to switch out. Toxicroak is going to come in. I am going to throw this Avalanche. It does not actually do enough to prevent Toxicroak from reaching a move. I think he's stuck in a counter there, so maybe if I had fast moves denied, I would have been able to prevent it. Nope, would have gotten hit by a Mud Bomb anyway. Needed to throw the Shadow Ball. Gliscor is going to come out and just throw the Night Slash right away, but you can't store 3 Night Slashes, so they're going to have to build up to their third one. And I thought 1 counter would be enough, so I am going to end up having to eat this Night Slash, but that is fine. Lucario can tank that, no problem. Which is a thing you don't get to say very often about Lucario. But yeah, managed to take that game too. So, on into game number 3. Toxicroak into Magnezone. So, this is a pretty good matchup for me. If Magnezone can come back in with energy, obviously it will make a complete mess of me. He switches into Roserade, which I don't have a super amazing answer to in Munchlax. So I'm going to stay in with Toxicroak, do this counter damage, and throw a Mud Bomb. I get a shield, which is fantastic. Those counters were single resisted, by the way. Roserade is just that squishy. I no-shield the first move, expecting a bait, and it was actually a Leaf Storm. They have, double debuffed their own attack, so I'm going to no-shield this Weather Ball. Able to survive that. I'm going to throw this Body Slam as soon as I have it. Careful not to let them sneak in an extra Bullet Seed. And if I can reach this next Body Slam, it will put me in an amazing position, but I'm not quite able to make it. So this Roserade is debuffed, but does have, a decent chunk of energy. I'm going to send out Toxicroak, who will at least resist the Leaf Storm and only take neutral damage from the Weather Ball. Able to take that, and I'm able to counter the rest of the way down. I think they could have thrown another Weather Ball if he really wanted to. Magnezone comes back out into a Toxicroak with energy, so good sign for me. I'm going to land that Mud Bomb. Double super effective would definitely take them out, although even if it had only been single super effective, it would have taken it out because Magnezone is pretty squishy. There is a Drapion back there, and that is not really an answer to Toxicroak either. I'm going to no-shield the Aqua Tail, and it does that much. Not even half, so it doesn't. Having Aqua Tail doesn't actually really improve the Toxicroak matchup very much, and I am able to counter down only using 2 Pokemon and 2 shield flexing on Hollow. Take that, sir. Hyper beaming me with freaking Sharam. All right, next up against Scafo, a very, very prominent leaderboarder, also just like Pocket was. Froslass into Toxicroak, so pretty decent matchup for Froslass. He switches out into a Drifblim, which isn't really the best answer to Froslass, but since I don't actually have a good answer for Toxicroak, I do have to switch out at some point. So I'm going to end up shielding the Icy Wind bait, which is fine. I'm going to throw this Avalanche, CMPing them if they are throwing a Shadow Ball here. So if they shield, I can also shield. But yeah, they decide to let it go. So my Froslass is single debuffed. Doesn't really have that much energy. Munchlax is going to come out. I maybe should have just stayed in, but I kind of need Froslass to take out Toxicroak. Switch out into Hippowdon, which I have maybe been overusing in these matches because I don't know if it's the best Pokemon in this meta, even though it's ranked okay. I'm just going to go straight Body Slam here. It'll do slightly more damage than a neutral Weather Ball would, and yeah, I am going to no-shield this Body Slam, hoping that I can still make it to my own, and I feel like I should have made it there, but for whatever reason I fainted before I did. I don't know why I didn't make it to that Now I'm waiting on my switch clock, and then I'm going to send out Lucario. He brings in his Toxicroak. I'm going to switch back out into Froslass, throw this Avalanche as soon as I can, because I don't want them to reach the Mud Bomb first, and I'm not sure if I'll be able to survive these counters even to make it to another. Regardless, they're going to throw energy here. I probably should let this go, but I'm going to shield, hoping that maybe I can make it, and I just barely don't. That last Powder Snow would have gotten me the energy, but yeah, it did not quite make it there. It was one away. So I end up taking a Mud Bomb to Lucario's face, and yeah, that one-shots him. So yeah, that's a GG. Yeah, that was definitely a heavy misplay on my behalf. I should have just let the first Mud Bomb go. Lucario is just so not amazing against Toxicroak. It's tough. I definitely think Toxicroak was probably the better fighter to use in this meta. All right. So, yeah, he switches into Drapion, and I am going to bring Toxicroak out. Shadow Drapion actually has a much better matchup against Toxicroak because it doesn't get completely shut down. You know, at least I would have to shield something if they decided to shield. Whereas with non-Shadow Drapion, Toxicroak just absolutely shuts Drapion down, like, completely. Doesn't have to shield anything, and if Drapion shields, it doesn't even help the situation. So, Bronzong has a little bit of energy. I threw on 4 and tried to fast move deny, but they get the confusion through, so then they switch out. That means they have a Bulldoze loaded. Switch into Lucario, though. So I'm going to no-shield this first power-up punch, saving my shields in case I need them, because I know I'm going to need one shield to shield Bronzong's Bulldoze. Although, being that Bronzong is a Steel-type, Gastrodon could probably brute force his way through both of these Pokemon just fine. I'm going to no-shield this Power-Up Punch also, because I should be able to survive one counter after that, and I will. But for whatever reason, he's able to sneak a counter through on his own charge move, which is literally not even possible. I don't know why the game gave it to him like there. I am going to build up some extra energy, and I'm just going to throw this crunch, and I should be able to get to my second crunch no problem. I still have 2 shields, so I'm completely safe against this Bronzong, and Scaffold lets it go. But yeah, what did I say earlier in the last video? Stable game, it's the meta. Yeah, you should play the game in a way that it's stable. I don't know how you would do that. All right. So, yeah, my opponent switches into Froslass, and I bring Munchlax in, and I thought that this would be a good matchup for Munchlax, because it, on paper, looked like it should be. You know, my licks are super effective. I'm taking neutral damage from this ice. I'm going to throw this Bulldoze, and surely this Bulldoze plus all of my licks would be enough to take out Froslass before they reach a second Avalanche, right? No. So, yeah, I have a decision to make here. I should have just let this go, by the way. I literally forgot what my backline was, because I'm not using a team that I'm familiar with. And it doesn't let you see your the rest of your team during the charge move animations. So I'm going to reach this Bulldoze, just barely. So if they no-shield this, it'll do devastating damage, but they do. And now this Empoleon has energy, which is unfortunate. I send out Toxicroak, and they were insta-throwing, so if I had sent out... if I had sent out, what's it called, Electivire, I actually could have just let that go and resisted the Drill Peck. But yeah, now I have no shields, and Electivire is going to come out into this Cresselia. A single Moonblast, which hits for neutral, does so much damage, and I'm not even able to get my first Wild Charge off. So yeah, this is not going amazingly for me either. I'm going to take a neutral Moonblast on Toxicroak, and I'm going to be able to throw a Sludge Bomb, but it only does that much damage, which is really less than I thought I remembered how much it did. That Cresselia is really, really thick. All right, next up into the actual Nomad. Toxicroak into Bastiodon. So haven't been seeing a ton of Bastiodons. My opponent switches into a Drapion, which is a pretty not amazing answer to Toxicroak. So I am going to stay in for a bit. But I do have a problem here, which is that neither of my backline Pokemon really has a great matchup against Bastiodon. Munchlax obviously can be okay, because it's pretty tanky, and the Bulldoze is double super effective, but Electivire will obviously struggle. So I am going to shield this Sludge Bomb, actually, and I could have countered the whole way down, but I switched out into Munchlax because I kind of assumed that he would have reached another move, just because, you know... I figured he was probably one ahead of where I thought he was, because you kind of have to make that assumption sometimes. End up switching out into Munchlax, which is okay, because, you know, I'm going to build up some energy, and now I'm going to be able to unload these bulldozers on this Bastiodon. So 2 bulldozers is all I really need, and yeah, I don't really take that much damage from him. He switches out into a Shadow Torterra, which is crazy. I'm gonna throw this Body Slam. If I was able to switch out and transfer the Razor Leaf, I would have done so, so I could save Munchlax, because I'll still be able to survive a Smackdown and reach another Body Slam, although I guess that wouldn't really do very much against the Bastiodon. But that's all right. I'm just going to come back out with Toxicroak. I'm realizing very quickly that Electivire has no play against my opponent's team. But Torterra takes, you know, neutral damage from the counters, so I'm able to take them down. And now I'm able to just throw this Mud Bomb as soon as Bastiodon comes back out, and I managed to take that game. That is a GG. Yeah, not a lot of things for Shadow Electivire to do. I don't know. We'll see how the meta shakes up. Maybe there'll be a place for it. I built it specifically for this video, so I wanted to use it. I just kept not, I don't know, having amazing luck with it when I was. All right, so Lucario into Froslass. This whole team does pretty bad against Froslass. Actually, really bad against Froslass. This is a terrible team. Don't run this team that I built. I don't know what I was doing and I don't know why I continued to run it after it got completely shut down by Hot Pocket earlier. So I actually was able to correctly bait, meaning building up to the Shadow Ball before throwing my bait move. So I got the first shield, and then I got the second shield, and I switched out to try to catch an Avalanche on Cresselia, and I'm going to let this go, hoping that it is the Avalanche, and it is. So actually, great. Get in another Confusion, and I am going to shield this, assuming that it is the Shadow Ball, and it is. Froslass switches out, pretty much energy drained, so Lucario will be able to counter down if it comes back out into Lucario. The only time I'll have to kind of worry is if it gets brought out into my Gliscor, just because double super effective Powder Snow damage. And yeah, my opponent brings out his own Cresselia, also running Confusion. So we desynced a little bit there, so I waited for him to throw so that I'd be able to get in a full Confusion. And now I'm able to fast move deny and throw this Grass Knot. I am going to be able to reach another Grass Knot. Grass Knot is slightly more efficient, but Moonblast does very slightly more damage. So throwing the Moonblast, like he did, would have been the right choice if he would have been able to prevent me from reaching a charge move. Otherwise, Grass Knot is slightly more efficient. Take a Grass Knot on my Gliscor, and I have to throw this Night Slash right away, just because I'll get Powder Snow down before I'm able to Fury Cutter down the Froslass. Torterra comes out and just is going to Razor Leaf me down. Razor Leaf is going to hit me for neutral. I am going to be able to at least get off this Night Slash first, and it does, you know, a decent chunk of damage. Shadow Torterra is pretty squishy. I'm going to bring out Cresselia and just spam out the Grass Knot right away. Moonblast would have been better, but I didn't remember for sure if I had it, and I didn't want to accidentally throw a Confusion, because then I would totally die. Yeah, and Lucario is going to come out, and I am just going to spam out my Power-Up Punch as soon as I can, because I don't remember how much energy the Cresselia had. But yeah, managed to take that game. That is a GG. All right, Froslass into Gastrodon. Right, so I thought this was going to be a very strong matchup for Froslass. It just feels like it should have been, and these Mud Slaps do so much damage. Like, I'm going to throw this Avalanche, and it does that much, which is a pretty decent chunk. Avalanche and Shadow Ball both hit for neutral. Shadow Ball does slightly more damage, so you know, it's not going to prevent Gastrodon from being able to reach the Earth Power, but if the IVs on Gastrodon are good enough, I think they'd actually be able to reach another, or be able to reach a Body Slam after that. And based on how little health Froslass had left over, a Body Slam might be like nearly enough. So I am going to throw my second Shadow Ball against this Empoleon. Avalanche is double resisted and actually wouldn't KO from there, but the Shadow Ball would. And since I was able to reach it, might as well throw it. Lucario is going to come out. They're going to switch it into Shadow Torterra, and I should have just stayed in with Lucario, honestly. Like, I'm doing super effective damage with this, you know, Fire Fang, but the Razor Leaf is doing super effective damage to me also, and it has Stab, and I don't. So Shadow Torterra completely just fast moves down Hippowdon. I was able to take a shield at least. So I have to shield that what is it, that sand tomb, because it would just, it would do too much damage to take me out anyway. But yeah, able to end with a Shadow Ball and able to take down the Empoleon and manage to take that game. That is a GG. Yeah, Hippowdon. I mean, I built Hippowdon, so I've been using it, but yeah, I haven't had the best success with it. But yeah, I guess that was the last battle. So yeah, thank you all for watching. Don't forget to do the things you know you're supposed to do at the ends of videos. You know you're supposed to do them. Please do the things. It helps me out a lot. And yeah, I will see you when I see you.